A political titan who once occupied a seat of power inside the nation's highest judicial selection committee now faces the irreversible reality of a criminal conviction. For over 16 long years, fiery populist rhetoric shielded him from legal consequences, while ordinary citizens watched the fundamental integrity of the constitutional order hang in the balance. Now, as 3 separate criminal indictments converge simultaneously across the courts, the protective veil of political influence has finally fractured. If power changes hands but not structure, has anything really changed? Do not look away. What comes next may change how we read the geopolitical landscape of Southern Africa. If you believe in unflinching political analysis, give us your like, leave your thoughts, and subscribe to South African Dynamics to continue this journey together. Today on South African Dynamics, we unpack the extraordinary, unprecedented convergence of legal reckonings surrounding Julius Malema, a watershed moment that signals not merely the trial of one controversial politician, but a historic assertion of accountability for an entire constitutional democracy. In the annals of post-apartheid political history, few developments have sent shockwaves through the corridors of Parliament quite like the formal criminal conviction of Julius Malema. The leader of the economic freedom fighters, long regarded as an unyielding force within radical opposition politics, now stands as a convicted criminal following a thorough judicial ruling regarding the illegal discharge of a firearm at a public rally in Medantsana. Under Section 47 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, any elected representative who receives a prison sentence exceeding 12 months without the option of a fine faces immediate disqualification from serving as a member of Parliament. This legal reality strikes directly at the heart of Malema's political standing, threatening to strip him of his parliamentary status and his legislative platform. The gravity of this situation is heightened by an unprecedented institutional paradox that has long unsettled constitutional scholars across the globe. For years, Julius Malema occupied a coveted seat of power on the Judicial Service Commission, the constitutional body entrusted with interviewing, vetting, and appointing judges to the highest courts in the land. The spectacle of an individual battling multiple criminal charges while simultaneously evaluating the integrity of judicial officers who might ultimately preside over his own trials exposed a glaring structural vulnerability within South African governance. While his supporters previously dismissed these legal challenges as politically motivated persecutions, the meticulous nature of the verdict delivered by the presiding magistrate left no room for procedural evasion or ideological deflection. Yet the firearm conviction represents merely one pillar of a vast collapsing structure. The legal pressures confronting the opposition leader escalated dramatically following his high-profile address to residents in the township of Kayamandi, situated on the northern outskirts of Stellenbosch in the Western Cape. Addressing assemblies living under severe socio-economic strain, Malema directed public attention toward 3,000 hectares of fertile agricultural land owned by a single proprietor residing in a British colonial-style residence. Abandoning his customary reliance on ambiguous third-person rhetoric, Malema explicitly instructed the gathered crowd to march onto the property, declaring that they must take and occupy the land immediately. In doing so, he directly violated a binding court order granted by the North Gauteng High Court in March 2017, which explicitly prohibited the economic freedom fighters from inciting illegal land invasions and trespassing. Following these public statements, civil rights organization AfriForum, led by Chief Executive Officer Callie Creel, initiated swift legal action to hold the political leader in contempt of court. The North Gauteng High Court had previously dismissed an application by Malema and his party seeking to set aside the original interdict ordering them to pay legal costs. By capturing his explicit calls to breach property laws on video, legal advocates secured incontrovertible evidence of willful defiance against judicial authority. The systematic accumulation of these legal breaches demonstrates that the doctrine of equality before the law is finally asserting itself against political privilege, dismantling 16 years of perceived immunity. Yet, as the legal walls closed in over land incitement and illegal weapons charges, an even more damaging criminal indictment, was quietly mounting in the Eastern Cape, one that would strip away his last defense of moral authority. While the dispute over land incitement tested constitutional boundaries, a far more intimate and devastating conflict unfolded in the quiet town of Matatiele in the Eastern Cape. In October 2024, unverified allegations surrounding a severe crime at Bergview College triggered an aggressive and destructive social media campaign. Prominent political figures, most notably Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema and African National Congress Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula, swiftly amplified these baseless accusations across public channels. Mainstream media outlets prematurely joined the digital outcry, broadcasting unvetted claims before official law enforcement agencies could complete a preliminary investigation. At the center of this storm was an innocent educator and administrator, Jaco Peterson, who was publicly branded with damning labels that instantly dismantled his reputation, his professional standing, and his sense of personal safety. Subsequent police investigations formally cleared Jaco Peterson of all wrongdoing, establishing his absolute innocence. Yet the political figures who had leveraged his name for social media engagement offered no public retractions or apologies. By weaponizing false accusations against an ordinary citizen, high-ranking officials demonstrated an alarming willingness to sacrifice human dignity for political spectacle. Refusing to let character assassination go unchallenged, Jaco Peterson sought legal recourse through AfriForum's private prosecution unit, led by advocate Jerry Nell and senior investigator Barry Bateman. Formal criminal charges of crimen, injuria, intimidation, and violations of the Cybercrimes Act were officially lodged against Julius Malema, Fikile Mbalula, and Eastern Cape Education. Member of the Executive Council Fundile Gade. On Sunday, the 9th of August, 2026, Chief Executive Officer Callie Creel confirmed that state prosecutors had formally instituted criminal proceedings against Malema, marking a historic victory for equal accountability. Before we reveal the next chapter, which represents one of the most decisive legal confrontations in modern South Africa politics, I want to speak directly to you. If this channel has moved you, consider becoming a member of South African Dynamics. Your support directly funds deeper investigations and uncompromising political analysis. Join us and stand with the principle of truth. This criminal prosecution for crime and injuria strikes at the core of political privilege. For over a decade, senior figures operated under the illusion that party status provided an impenetrable shield against civil defamation and criminal liability. The insistence on holding lawmakers accountable for destroying private lives reflects a profound shift in public tolerance. Citizens across South Africa expressed intense outrage over the betrayal of an innocent teacher, viewing the incident as a stark symbol of political overreach. By forcing powerful politicians to face a magistrate for online defamation, the justice system demonstrated that the dignity of an ordinary citizen carries greater constitutional weight than the arrogance of elected leaders. Compounding this legal crisis is the lingering shadow of financial corruption that has cast doubt over the party's populist credentials. Investigative audits into the collapse of VBS Mutual Bank revealed how funds belonging to impoverished rural pensioners and municipal coffers were systematically diverted into private accounts. Financial investigators traced credit card transactions linked to luxury shopping sprees and high-end venues directly back to the opposition leadership. The stark contradiction between preaching economic liberation and benefiting from the collapse of a bank serving the vulnerable destroyed the moral high ground once claimed by the movement. With weapon charges, land interdict violations, crimen, injuria prosecutions, and financial investigations converging at once, the legal vice has tightened completely. With multiple criminal trials proceeding at once, the question was no longer whether Julius Malema could survive politically, but whether his party could endure the structural tremor of his absence. The systemic collapse of Julius Malema's legal immunity cannot be analyzed in isolation from the dramatic realignment of South Africa's broader political landscape. Following the pivotal national elections of May 2024, the economic freedom fighters suffered a profound political setback, slipping from their long-held position as the third-largest parliamentary force down to fourth place. They were decisively eclipsed by the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, spearheaded by former President Jacob Zuma, which captured a significant portion of the radical electorate. As political momentum shifted dramatically away from Malema's organization, the protective shield that previously guarded party elites against judicial scrutiny began to disintegrate. State institutions, including the National Prosecuting Authority and law enforcement agencies, found renewed institutional independence to pursue long-standing criminal allegations without facing immediate political paralysis. This structural shift exposed a fundamental reality within constitutional governance. When political power wanes, the rule of law inevitably reasserts its rightful primacy. This institutional recalibration highlights a glaring double standard that has frustrated ordinary South African citizens for nearly 2 decades. Had an average worker discharged a firearm at a public rally, organized illegal property invasions, or orchestrated defamatory campaigns against private citizens, swift prosecution and custodial sentencing would have followed within months. Yet for 16 consecutive years, senior political figures navigated around the judicial system, exploiting procedural delays and leveraging public platforms to remain effectively above the law. The ongoing Julius Malema trial represents far more than a legal dispute over individual parliamentary conduct. It serves as a definitive test for the moral legitimacy of the entire constitutional republic. This is not selective prosecution. This is not political persecution. This is equal enforcement. The public demand for accountability reflects a deeper societal yearning for truth, proving that a healthy democracy cannot survive when leaders operate under a separate legal code. Beyond the parliamentary chamber, these judicial proceedings carry profound economic and domestic security implications for communities across the country. For years, reckless calls for uncompensated land seizures disrupted agricultural sectors, discouraged foreign direct investment, and stoked racial tensions in vulnerable farming districts. The government's legislative discussions surrounding the Expropriation Act further heightened global economic anxiety regarding private property rights and financial stability. By legally curbing inflammatory incitement and strictly enforcing high court orders against unlawful trespass, the judiciary has provided vital protection to agricultural producers, landholders, and rural laborers who sustain national food security. Restoring institutional certainty reassures domestic industries and global trade partners that property rights remain protected under constitutional law. Now let us turn this moment into a shared reflection. Take a second right here to share in the comments where you are watching from your city, your state, your corner of the world. South African Dynamics would like to express our deepest gratitude to everyone tuning in, and we send to each of you a heartfelt wish may your journey be guided by dignity, hope, and unwavering truth. The comments below become a map of global solidarity, demonstrating that the pursuit of justice resonates across all borders. As the domestic foundation of populist influence crumbles under the weight of judicial accountability, the consequences extend far beyond national borders. International observers, foreign diplomats, and global economic institutions have monitored these legal developments with intense interest, assessing what this institutional turning point means for Southern Africa's geopolitical trajectory. As South Africa's internal political architecture recalibrates under the rule of law, foreign capitals and international institutions have begun issuing their own stark assessments of the crisis. The geopolitical ramifications of South Africa's internal judicial developments extend far beyond the borders of the African continent, drawing intense scrutiny from international institutions, foreign ministries, and global financial markets. Across major Western capitals, including Washington, London, and Brussels, diplomatic envoys and national security analysts have closely monitored the convergence of 3 separate criminal proceedings against radical political figures. For international stakeholders invested in sub-Saharan economic stability, South Africa serves as an indispensable geopolitical anchor. When political discourse is dominated by inflammatory threats of unlawful expropriation, land invasions, and institutional intimidation, foreign direct investment contracts rapidly, sovereign credit ratings face downward pressure, and international trade partnerships are placed under severe strain. The visible reinforcement of judicial independence signals to global markets that constitutional guarantees surrounding property rights, contract law, and personal security remain robustly enforceable under statutory frameworks. Within the diplomatic corridors of the United States, foreign policy strategists, intelligence committees, and congressional observers view these legal milestones through the lens of democratic resilience and institutional integrity. For American policymakers, international historians, and diaspora scholars who have long supported Southern Africa's democratic trajectory, the impartial enforcement of high court orders reaffirms that no political actor operates above constitutional boundaries. Bilateral trade initiatives, strategic mineral supply chains, and diplomatic cooperation depend heavily on predictable governance and strict adherence to international legal norms. The willingness of South African state prosecutors and independent judicial bodies to pursue high-profile cases regardless of political power demonstrates an institutional maturity that distinguishes the constitutional republic within the broader regional environment. Simultaneously, regional multilateral bodies, such as the African Union and the Southern African Development Community, evaluate these court proceedings as a decisive benchmark for constitutionalism across the continent. For decades, radical populist movements across emerging democracies have leveraged socio-economic grievances to undermine democratic institutions from within. As international diplomats and foreign affairs experts assess the broader EFFF political downfall, analysts emphasize that South Africa's ability to hold populist leaders accountable reinforces its standing as a continental pillar of constitutional democracy. This systemic shift proves to foreign observers that political rhetoric cannot indefinitely override legal responsibility, nor can populist influence shield individuals from the impartial demands of justice. Yet beyond the diplomatic dispatches and foreign embassy assessments lies the ultimate test of domestic governance: how a nation channels this moment of legal accountability into lasting economic stability and national renewal. The unfolding legal resolution surrounding Julius Malema marks a profound turning point in the modern history of South Africa, offering both significant opportunities and complex challenges for the future of the Republic. For years, the shadow of populist demagoguery obscured the core economic and social struggles facing millions of disenfranchised citizens. By allowing inflammatory rhetoric to replace sound governance, radical political movements exploited real grievances regarding land ownership, wealth distribution, and historic inequality without delivering sustainable policy solutions. As the judicial system systematically addresses these unlawful acts, the nation stands at a critical threshold, moving past the era of theatrical defiance and stepping into an era defined by institutional maturity, economic security, and genuine constitutional democracy. The road ahead requires a renewed national commitment to resolving structural disparities through transparent, legal, and equitable mechanisms. Addressing historic land hunger and economic inequality remains an urgent national imperative, yet it must be achieved within the boundaries of statutory law. Unlawful property invasions, political intimidation, and racial division do not empower the marginalized. They undermine economic stability, displace vulnerable workers, and destroy institutional trust. This is not reform. This is not rhetoric. This is accountability. When state institutions enforce court orders impartially, they protect the very fabric of society, ensuring that true economic liberation is built upon the solid foundation of property rights, investor confidence, and constitutional rule. Furthermore, the systematic enforcement of accountability heralds a crucial victory for the moral authority of the state. When political figures who once occupied a seat of power are held to the same legal standards as ordinary citizens, the destructive doctrine of impunity is permanently dismantled. This decisive shift restores public trust in law enforcement agencies, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the judicial bench. As the political influence of radical populism wanes, room emerges for constructive, policy-driven discourse that prioritizes job creation, infrastructure, development, and transparent public administration. A mature democracy cannot flourish on empty promises or divisive rhetoric. It requires sustainable economic growth, institutional integrity, and strict adherence to constitutional principles. Ultimately, this historic moment offers a powerful message of hope and national renewal for Southern Africa. The resilience of South Africa's constitutional frameworks proves that democratic institutions can withstand severe political turbulence and emerge stronger, more cohesive, and deeply committed to justice. By choosing the path of legal integrity over chaotic populism, the Republic reaffirms its sovereignty and its dedication to protecting the dignity of every citizen. This historic shift marks not the end of a single political career, but the dawn of an era where no politician stands above the law, setting an inspiring precedent for emerging democracies across the global stage. Yet, as the final courtroom verdicts draw near, the ultimate question remains whether a rejuvenated constitutional order can deliver the economic prosperity its citizens have waited decades to see. Before we close, let us pause. What you have witnessed today is not simply an episode of history, it is a powerful reminder that sovereignty, dignity, and accountability remain the fundamental pillars of a constitutional republic. If this message has moved you, subscribe to South African Dynamics. By joining our growing community, you choose to walk with us into the next chapter of Africa's unfolding story. The legal proceedings surrounding the Julius Malema trial signal a profound watershed moment for Southern Africa. For over 16 long years, political privilege cast a heavy shadow over the administration of justice, creating the dangerous illusion that high-ranking leaders occupied a realm far above statutory law. Today, as independent state prosecutors and constitutional courts enforce judicial rulings without fear or favor, the core principle of legal equality is decisively reasserted across the nation. The historical significance of this moment extends far beyond individual political destinies. What international diplomats, foreign observers, and political analysts document as the broader EFF political downfall is fundamentally a triumph for institutional integrity. It proves to emerging democracies across the globe that constitutional safeguards can withstand the temporary noise of radical populism. As the Julius Malema trial approaches its final legal resolution, the Republic demonstrates that genuine national liberation is built upon accountability, economic stability, and the protection of fundamental human dignity. This is not reform. This is not rhetoric. This is accountability. The era of perceived political immunity has ended, yielding to an age where the law applies equally to every citizen, regardless of status or title. As South Africa steps into this new chapter of governance, one fundamental question remains for citizens and global observers alike. If a constitutional democracy enforces the law equally against the most powerful, can any populist movement ever subvert true democracy again? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a like and subscribe to South African Dynamics as we continue to bring you unflinching political analysis.